Hey everybody, just want to thank everybody for tuning in for another episode of Not For Nothing. I am in Richmond, Virginia again, and I am at Unkindness Art in Richmond. Teresa Sharpe and her crew have, very thankfully allowed us to use the space, and I am going to be sitting and chatting with a couple of young ladies here. Why don't you guys do me a favor and tell everybody who you are and how long you've been tattooing, and actually who you are, where you're from, and how long you've been tattooing. Who wants to start?
Okay. Oh, you want me
You
to
go.
start? Okay. I'm Anne-Marie. I want to try to say my last name in English because it's
How do you say it in?
Dupuis.
Who?
Dupuis.
Dupuis?
Dupuis. Yeah, it's super common in Quebec too. It's kind of funny. I feel exotic when I'm out of the French-speaking countries.
Okay, that's definitely
Yeah. So I'm like,
It's very French.
And I'm from Quebec originally, from Montreal, and I live on Vancouver Island now. Yeah.
How long you been tattooing?
It's a hard question because I did my first tattoo, I was like 16, so that would be 21 years ago, but I don't feel I've been tattooing for 21 years. I've been a scratcher for half of that at least, so...
Oh wow, so did you, well, we'll get to the apprenticeship thing and everything else.
Yeah.
And Christina?
So I'm from Vancouver.
Give us your whole name, Christina.
Oh, I'm Christina Christie, and I'm from Vancouver, and I've been tattooing. We've been tattooing about the same.
kind of
Yeah. So I think officially, like, I'm gonna say 18 years, but like, it's kind of hazy with the apprenticeship and stuff. So, yeah.
Okay. So what are you guys doing in town?
We're here for a convention mainly, and doing a guest spot here, which is pretty exciting.
So I do want to talk to you about like what what you're actually, doing here. But I think what we should start with is like you said you were a scratcher for a good chunk
I have
of your
to be honest.
for a good chunk of your career.
Yeah.
Where did you actually like what was the first instance that you did tattoo?
Like the first tattoo, how I started.
Yeah,
kind of
like
thing.
what made you pick up a machine and go for it?
I don't know. I always wanted to do it. Like since I remember I was like 13 or something like that, and I was like, I'm gonna be a tattoo artist. Like that's what I'm gonna do. And when I turned 16 and move out or whatever and start to need to work, I was like, okay, like I wanna get started with this, And like no one really wanted me as an apprentice, which is fair. I was 16.
Right.
Like I don't know. I was probably not even good at drawing that much back then. So I just tried my best, I guess, with what I had. Yeah, just
and you just kept plucking away at
stubborn.
like where did you pick up your first machines? Like you use coils when you line. I noticed that.
Yeah.
So you started with coils then.
But there was not really any rotaries back then,
Right,
or like
21,
pens,
21.
or So definitely coils. The story is a bit embarrassing, but it's cute, so I'm gonna say it. I was 16 and I had no money. I was super broke, and I knew I wanted to do that. And I knew I would never have enough money to get a machine, so I asked my mom if I asked my mom if she would take the little bit of money she put aside for school for doing this instead, because I wanted to do that instead of going to school. So she somehow said yes.
Oh, wow.
And,
Okay.
we went to the local tattoo shop where I was living because I moved out of the house. And we bought my first kit from one of actually really good tattooer there. That is still a really good tattooer. And it's how it started. And just tattooing my friends, tattooing myself. I tried to get a job there, and I was like a 16, 17 years old punk. Like, of course he didn't want to hire me. So, so it started like that.
Oh shit. Okay.
I was stubborn as fuck.
So now how did you eventually end up getting an apprenticeship? How old were you?
I didn't.
At all?
There's this shop maybe 2 years down the road that they said they would take me, and it was like this kind of I don't want to shit on anyone, but it was like fairly dingy biker shop kind of thing.
Right.
And they were supposed to show me things, but like it ended up just you scrub tubes and no one is really telling you, like, you don't have like a bit of like what's the word in English? Like kind of frame, you know, like people kind of telling you what to do and which direction.
Yeah, no real curriculum, no real framework.
Yeah, framework. Like there's just none of that. So, and it was, you know, like at one point the ceiling was leaking on my station. And I was like, okay, this is crazy. You need to fix the ceiling. And they're like, well, just move your station.
So this was just a crappy tattoo shop. Was
like,
it like a
really
biker shop? Was
it was a biker shop.
Okay.
Yeah. So I ended up just leaving. I'm telling all my truth here. And I was trying to find a place to work and like an apprenticeship, and I was just like not finding anything. And that was kind of my example of tattoo shops.
Right.
So I was, I guess, a stubborn kid, and I was like, I'm just going to do it myself. And I struggled for the following 10 years trying to figure out myself. And I regret it now.
Wow.
But
what do you consider?
What happen? Like,
I was going to say, not for nothing, you've turned out pretty good.
Yeah, thank you.
Like, what would you consider would be your break? What was your break?
When I got finally out of my private studio and I started traveling, I went on kind of like on a never-ending tour of convention and guest spots, and that like completely changed everything. I started to learn really, really quick everything I should have learned before, or everything I like was doubting about, and I was like, I think this is how I'm supposed to do this, but like you're always kind of, no one ever told you, I didn't have peers.
Right.
Like I had no one to talk about it with, so it's just like, yeah, like I think it really started then, like just talking with other tattooers and meeting a lot of good tattooers, and yeah, I would say.
Nice. Now, what about you, Christine? You started. You're not. Are you from Vancouver as well, or?
Well, just outside Vancouver.
Just outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I started like when I was young. I always wanted to go to art school, so I was always sort of prepping and doing all the things to kind of get into art school, and then. When I was 16 and I was getting my portfolio ready for going to art school and all this, and then I was doing like all these sort of like pinup things, and you know, these kind of like at the time I thought were really cool, you know, sort of rockabilly art. And there was a janitor that worked at my high school that saw some of the pieces that I was like doing for, you know, little like school art shows and stuff.
Right.
And he was cool because he had all these tattoos, and everybody always thought like, oh, that's like the cool janitor that works at the high school. And one day he like came up to me and he was like, hey, you know, like I saw some of your artwork. And he's like, you know, maybe I might be able to get you like a job. And I was like, doing what, you know? And he's like, yeah. And really, I was like, he's like, oh, well, you could go and see my my tattoo artist, and I could maybe get you a job. And then, so I was like, I don't know about that. I think I would rather just like be an animator and like, you know, go and like do art. Because at the time, like I was young and I didn't think that was as cool as it is, like I think now. But because I didn't see any tattoos that were really mind-blowing at the time, you know, like around me.
Did you have some?
No. Yeah, and then so anyways, then I went and I brought some drawings and stuff to a tattoo shop, and it was like about an hour away from me, and went and brought it in. They liked it, and they were like, we can hire you, we're gonna hire you, you can do all of our artwork for us, like you can draw all of our drawings for us. And then we'll give you an apprenticeship along the way. And then, because they were a very busy shop, so I was like, okay, you know, I'll just draw all that stuff for them. And I'm really kind of glad I did, because I was sort of like that monkey that was in the back that was drawing for everybody. Right. And they didn't have to. And then it made it easier for them.
Now, how old are you at this point?
Also, I just turned 17.
Oh, so you're still technically underage. You're not 18 yet.
Yeah.
And you're not tattooed at this point.
No, not at all.
And they still let you in, and like just because you were that good, or they just were taking advantage of a young kid who's willing to draw for them?
Yeah, I think it's that. So then, you know, like I went and then at that time, like probably that same week, I got a letter saying that I got into art school. And so I was like, whoa, okay, so now I have a job that's art based, and I get to go to art school. So I was like, cool. So then I apprenticed that whole 4 years or so, maybe two years or so, that I kind of apprenticed and did drawings, and then also was going to art school. So I was making all this art, and it was just such a heavily art-based time, you know? So, and then afterwards graduated and then was still at the shop for a little while, and then eventually moved on and worked at a couple other shops, and then opened my own, and then.
So at the time, like, right out of college, 4 years in college, or
4 years.
4 years in college.
Yeah.
So 4 years in college, were you getting tattooed at the same time, or you're still not getting tattooed and you just?
Oh, so I guess, yeah, I wasn't really getting tattooed because I didn't really, nothing that was around me was particularly inspiring.
Okay.
And so I was kind
You're
of like,
smart.
oh, I thought I thought I was being smart. And then I was like, one day, because, you know, of course, you know, like we had all these kinds of books and stuff at the shop, you know, and, you know, you were heavily influencing my work. And so then at the time I was like, oh, the ultimate is that I'm going to go and see Joe and I'm going to get tattooed. And so then.
Was that when I tattooed your hand?
Well, I think I had one on my foot and I had maybe one other, I can't remember where or when, but I was like, yeah, no, I got to get tattooed by like a real good artist. And so then I saved up all my money and I was able to like come out there.
So smart.
Well,
You had already owned the shop at that point.
No.
You didn't own the shop at that point.
I don't think.
I can't remember. You said it was over 9 years ago that I tattooed you.
I think it was more than that.
Yeah. So how long have you been tattooing?
So like I said, I think about 18 years, but maybe it was after I moved on and opened the shop, but I'm pretty sure it was before that. So the time frame is a bit hazy. I don't know exactly.
I think that's everybody's, like, any tattooer has no real clue as to how long anything takes sometimes.
That's it, yeah. So anyways, then I did that, and then I was like, whoa, that, you know, like, was such an influence, like, just going somewhere and like getting tattooed by someone you admire,
right.
and then going back and taking all of that stuff that you absorbed and you know, trying to do it yourself, or trying to take the things that you admire and do it into your own work, or do it even just sort of like apply it to your own, the way that you are every day.
Right.
And so I was like, you know, went back and then started collecting some more tattoos by some people that I admired. Like I went and got tattooed by Timmy, and you know, I was really into the new school stuff at that time. And then I got tattooed by Steve, and that was a big one because he was a huge influence on me. And
that's way later.
But that's way.
I was gonna say, you didn't start getting tattooed by Steve until probably
6, 7.
Yeah. So let's not jump ahead of that because it's something I do want to talk about with both of these on. So you've been tattooing probably about almost the same amount of time. Like technically consider. Oh, you are the same age you guys.
Yeah.
But how old are you?
37.
Oh, so you're still pretty young. That's solid.
Well, I don't know about that.
So let me ask you. Trust me, you're fucking young. Fucking 30, you're 20 years younger than I am. Fine. So, okay, so the one thing I noticed, like when I went to Canada the last time, I ended up going to. Sorry about that.
Oh, no.
I ended up going to the last time I did the Calgary convention, and that's got to be at least 7 years ago. I think,
I know, yeah.
At least.
I think.
And the thing that struck me the most, at that particular convention was how many women were actually tattooing on the convention floor. At that point, it was nearly half.
Yeah.
Which for me, coming from the States, not that there weren't a lot of female tattooers in the States at the time. But it just didn't seem like it was as prevalent, especially at conventions.
Yeah.
The ones, the female tattooers, and I'm sure this is going to offend a shit ton of people, but the female tattooers in the States they had already kind of made a name for themselves. They weren't just showing up kind of thing, you know what I mean? Where there'd be like, 40 women tattooing at the show, and you knew, and you didn't know any of them or whatever. It's usually the people you kind of knew, like the Hannah Aschensons, and you had back in the day, you had Patty Kelly, any number of people, Carrie Barba. It's like people who know all these names. But now, the thing that struck me in Canada was just how many females were on the floor.
Right.
Every one of them was fucking good.
Yeah.
When you both got into this, like how many women were tattooing? Was it odd for you to go into a tattoo shop and ask for an apprenticeship, or for you to go into a tattoo shop with no real experience other than teaching yourself and being accepted as a woman in the business?
My start.
And you can start.
When I started, I don't feel there's a lot of women in Montreal tattooing. There's a few, of course, but I feel I can count it on like maybe one hand. Yeah, it was pretty rare. It was I don't know, because I don't have that much experience in shops at that time. I would say it's difficult to say.
I feel like, because my mentor was a female, or is a female, and there was a few females that were working at the shop. I think it was like, I think you were talking about this fairly recently too, with someone else where there was sort of like a couple, like, you know, like in the shop, where it's like somebody's married to somebody or somebody's a girlfriend, boyfriend, type thing, and then they're in the industry as well. But so, you know, the females that I did work with either had a partner that was in tattooing as well, or some part of tattooing, piercing, whatever it is. Right. So I mean, I saw a lot of females when I was tattooing, but like not a ton. It was still kind of like rare. Yeah. But you did know them by name, you know, like
because there weren't so many that it was really kind of taking you by storm. And because you were a woman in the business, and for some guys, I'm sure they looked at it from the same perspective. It's like, oh, there's only 6 in this state. Yeah. So for us to, you know, it's easy to get to know who all these people are. Yeah. You know. So in the beginning, do you think it was difficult, or was it a pretty?
It was scary. I think it was intimidating.
Yeah, I heard a lot of like clients saying I would never get tattooed by a woman, and like I don't want to get too
that
bitter
want to get tattooed by
back then, but like I had a lot of shit stuff being told to me, or like I'm supposed to look like when the TV shows started to come out, like you're supposed to have like a big chest piece with a big cleavage and like cleavage or whatever, and you know that kind of stuff. The shop I was working at, the shitty one. Sorry if you're listening.
That would have been the shop that was that was what was expected of you back then?
They would not get it from me. Nice. But there was definitely I don't know how much there's gonna be people listening to that, but it was
I mean, if you don't want to talk shit about anybody, don't worry about it. But it's not like a lot of people are watching this.
There was a lot of inappropriate behavior in that show.
A lot of what kind of behavior?
Inappropriate behaviors towards me, towards any women getting in the shop. I would say towards a client of a particular person that was working in that shop. I was really young. Too much to say something about it, but looking back, I think there was a lot of stuff that was not okay. Right. So when the whole like hashtag Me Too thing came out of in the tattoo industry and community,
that was only it was before COVID, so maybe 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, I definitely understood what they were talking about, like for sure. I've seen that a fair bit. Yeah. I don't have loads of experience in shop at that time, so I can't really be like, oh, that was everywhere, but I did see that firsthand, I would say. So I would say that adds, from my own experience, for where I've been in that time, like it definitely added a bit of fear or discomfort on trying to go in other places, maybe, I would say.
Do you think it made you, I don't want to say more leery, but like a little bit more street smart about how you handled yourself, and you know,
like in shops?
In general, like just like general. You know how men are gonna treat you, or like did you get a little bit tougher? Someone came in your chair and got out of hand, or just got a little handsy.
You knew how to handle yourself.
I don't know how to like say no, maybe a little bit more, or tell them to fuck off when it's the time. Maybe having a private studio, I kind of had to for sure, and like. I guess there's a different dimension to your own security when you work by yourself. Right. But I feel it was fine. Like for most of it, no one ever
Nobody really fucked around with you too much?
No, like shitty comments. Like I would never get tattooed by a woman apart from you, but you don't count, and like weird stuff like that, or like you're not a real tattooer because you don't have like the look, the typical or tattoos. Like weird stuff like that. But overall, it wasn't too bad. I feel like I got it pretty easy overall. Yeah. I can't really complain.
What about you, Christina?
I think I never really had too much of a problem with, you know, the male-female interaction type thing. But I was also very naive and timid as well. So, but I do think that being like at that shop, seeing my mentor, you know, being kind of this big presence, and quite intimidating, she sort of hardened me a bit, I think. So I kind of, I think I was pretty good about being in situations like that. Probably through learning from her.
Yeah, I would imagine if you're around people like, say, Julie Moon or Kate Hellenbrand or, you know, Pat Fish or any number of other old American female tattooers, they didn't take a whole lot of shit.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
But they also came up in a day of bikers, so it was like you either played the game or you cut the fucking game off, I would imagine, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it was cool to be able to see that. I'm glad I saw, you know, that, because she could be pretty harsh, but like, I think I needed that probably.
Right.
Yeah.
As far as getting out on your own and then you working amongst other people and getting out, and like, what are some of your, like, as far as influences are concerned, like, you know, like how important are they? How important were they when you guys were coming up? And kind of, because your style, in my eyes, only really stood out in the last maybe 5 years.
Yeah, I'd say.
You know, maybe 5 years. Yeah. Because before you were kind of not all over the place, but you had a particular. You did whatever came, it seemed, and you were just a good, solid, all-around tattooer. But now you've got more of a definite style.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that, you know, sometimes like through, I don't know if you found this, but like through making mistakes, sometimes you kind of start to find a little bit of a way.
Mistakes?
Well, no, but I mean artistically, really, like, you know, when you start, like, for so long, and I still do, but draw on paper. I mean, we all were drawing on paper.
Right.
But, you know, you get these loose sketches, and I think that, you know, like, I was influenced on sort of like, well, you know, doing these, like, exactly perfect lines are great, but doing something that kind of has a bit more character was sort of kind of flowed naturally, just because I was doing all of these drawings and so many lines, and I'd almost go manic with it, you know. But I feel like I really honed in on that, especially when I saw other artists doing it and seeing it up close, like seeing stuff in person and up close or on you is just so much more like organic to be able to absorb information from it.
As opposed to just seeing a picture online or on Instagram. Because I think Instagram is like the best of the worst because of the amount of bullshit you tend to see. Black and, you know, pitch blacks and ultra whites and this incredible saturation. And we all know that exists in maybe 2% of tattooing.
Right.
And a lot of it tends to it's just made up. It's like, you know, it's just smoke and mirrors for, you know, for the internet. You know?
So, you know, seeing that stuff in real life is really cool. Like, to be able to see all the, like, mistakes, because, you know, the mistakes are the thing that I enjoy seeing the most, because it's
what makes it human.
It makes it human. And I think that when I go and I meet other artists, like when you and I go to these conventions,
and they're fallible, and we're all humans, and
it's
we're
so
not
much
that
more
bad.
real. And it's like when you talk to people, these artists that you admire and stuff, and you start sort of, you know, be like, do you ever struggle with that? Or do you ever find that that's like a thing? And then they're like, oh yeah, like for years I found that, or I tried doing this and this didn't work, so I
you
did.
Get to pick their brains.
Yeah, and it's just like, so seeing sort of the realness of things has really been inspiring, and I think that that's why maybe I've embraced doing this maybe style, I guess, more so, especially with the influence of getting tattooed, I think, by people.
Yeah. What about you? You got like a very illustrative, I mean, I guess I would say illustrative style, you know, with the way you tend to approach stuff with the animals, but everything definitely has your, I always say thumbprint. You know, you've got a particular style that stands out strictly as you. Like, how did that come about naturally? Was there an individual that you?
Yeah, there's definitely individuals now. I feel there's like, because for the first 10 years I was living pretty much in a cave. Like, even like magazines, I was so broke. Like, I could barely buy a magazine. I was really late in the internet game. I knew obviously a few guys, you were one of them. But yeah, I would say I really sucked technically, because
Me too.
So I was just overcompensating with drawing because it's the only thing I could work out by myself, you know, and just keep on trying and trying and trying. So the emphasis really got for me on what I could work on, which was my drawing. And I think maybe because there is not a lot of influence around me, it just took its own path. And when I finally started to work with other people, it's just like, what can you do? And yeah, like West Coast Canada, like illustrative style is just insane. There's a lot of amazing artists there. And my old boss starting to actually show me a lot of those guys, and it was like, oh, you can't, like, I already was doing a bit of that because it was really drawing based. But it was like a bit whatever what people would ask me and trying to, because it was like that back then, right? Like you would just do everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
it was so hard to transition out of that too.
Yeah, it's a more recent thing.
Yeah.
I think, unless you have like a super big name, like, and you just like, otherwise it's like you kind of do a bit of everything.
But even then, do you still do small stuff? I feel like everyone's doing.
I mean, I'd say probably now more than ever.
Yeah.
Because
it's so slow.
I spent the first probably, and it was a short period of time because back then there were so few people doing things that were out of the box.
Right.
That I think I only spent 5 years in street shops doing nothing but street shop stuff.
Yeah.
And then
really?
the first probably 4 years of my career was just black and gray. And then I got to do one color piece. Yeah, same thing, right?
Yeah.
Then you get to do one color piece, it gets published, and then it fucking just blows up.
Yeah.
Now again, it's magazines, there's only a handful of magazines. Work gets in a magazine, it blows up.
Yeah.
So it's different than it is today.
Yeah.
But I still credit that to everything I know. Like when I was getting into it, like when I was making my name, we was tight threes, 5 rounds, 7 rounds. Everything was really, really, really tight. And then it wasn't until probably been doing it for 5 years, I meet other guys that are just using all 8 rounds. They're into the new school thing, and I'm getting kind of lumped in with the new school thing. And I never considered myself a new school artist. I just drew what I drew,
Oh wow!
So it definitely changes. But then you start discovering other artists, and you go, oh, maybe I will try using an 8 round, an open 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
And it changes the way you do stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's why I was asking if there were anyone in particular, but like even illustrators, because. That's what I mean by you having an illustrative style.
Weirdly enough, I loved Paul Booth so much.
Really?
Because
Wow.
that was such a
I did
punk.
too. Yeah.
And I was like, cool, I'm gonna do black and gray, morbid, realistic stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened.
Because you're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, definitely not. Him and Bob Tyrrell, I was like,
Bob
this
Tyrrell.
is crazy. And later on, there's Jeff Gogwe.
That's actually Jeff Gogwe behind you.
Oh, is it? That definitely made me want to do colors. I would say, I don't know if it's probably around that time, and Nick Baxter too, that I was like, oh yeah, that's really cool stuff, like kind of slowly like tilting that way.
Now, would you say, but for both of you, it was magazines that kind of made
100%
you gear that way towards that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
And books, like, I mean, I get a little obsessive with the book stuff. Like, if there's like a book that I want, or if there's a series, like I want to try and order it or get it, and like I really like that. But the big thing was the magazines and books.
Yeah, I think back then too, and I think what made it the better part about the magazines were that they only came out once a month, some only once every other month. And I think what it did was it gave you time to discover something, and then fuck around with that discovery, and really fool with it before the next thing came and blew your mind.
It's not like overstimulating. Like
exactly. And the nice thing about the magazines back then too were like if you got something new into the magazines, you had about 2 to 3 months of like play where you could build on that as the artist who put the piece in the magazine.
Yeah.
And build on it and build on it and build on it before anybody like you could really get out there and just be like, oh, I'm gonna crush this fucking guy and do exactly what you had seen and then run with it. But I had a couple of months on top of you before you really got a chance to catch up.
Right.
Now it's fucked because you put something online, and I can post something that is mind blowing, and I'll post it at 7 o'clock at night, and some dude in China or Japan or
In the
Australia,
same way
yes,
you
or
created
Australia,
a
who's
media
technically a day
brand.
ahead,
Yeah.
he looks at it and goes, "Oh, I got this."
Yeah.
And then you wake up the next morning and his piece is on, and you're just like,
Oh no, yeah.
You know? So I think that's from being an
Oh,
older
that's
guy.
interesting.
That's aggravating to me because
Yeah.
it bums me the fuck out that things are happening. Like I
So
get
good.
it, you want things to happen fast.
Yeah.
But, you know, you should have the opportunity to kick your feet back for a little bit and
yeah, enjoy it.
That's super interesting you say that. I feel like maybe it creates that. I feel there's so much anxiety in our community now.
Yeah.
Like people
Yeah.
always feeling obsolete. Like, oh, I should keep on
So
pushing.
quick, and you're
we
looking
don't
for-
take 1 minute off to try other things because we're gonna keep on having to push. And I feel
Yeah.
maybe because of
You wonder if
the
you
format
had
of
the if
social
you had
media.
the time. And again, the flip side of this could be you do something, you get it out there, and you're still kind of working on it, and then somebody else runs on it, and they go, "Oh, I can do this, this, and this,"
Yeah.
and then you get to see what he's doing, and
Yeah.
you may not even know each other, but you may pay attention. So then you'll go, "Oh, fuck, I didn't think of that. I didn't think of using purple instead of green,
Yeah.
Right.
or any number
Yeah,
of
yeah,
things."
Yeah.
So it is. So then it's definitely got benefits, but I think from the standpoint of wanting to being an older guy and just wanting to take my time on stuff, yeah, I think it's almost like it's put a time limit on how much you're going to have and how much time you're going to have in the sun,
Right.
and that kind of freaks me out. And have you guys? Again, I'm saying this like 20 years over. Realistically, only 12 years
12,
longer
yeah.
than you guys, you know. But do you feel like, are you feeling the stress, or are you just
Yeah.
so concentrating on what you're doing?
We're always feeling stressed.
We're always stressed.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like we were talking about it the other day. I think a little bit.
The pressure in
The pressure,
general?
yeah, and like.
Do you think it's from social media and the
Well,
speed
yeah,
of things?
the speed of
or-
things, like you were saying, is like you're constantly looking at. If you're looking at Instagram, you're seeing you could see a new piece that somebody posts or something, and then all of a sudden it's like everybody's talking about it. But like within, like I've had it where I've seen somebody like say, I don't know, one of the Texas or somebody, it's like post something, and then the next day you go to a convention because you're like, oh cool, that's awesome, and then you go to a convention and everybody's talking about that because
Yeah.
it's so quick, like, and everybody can access it so quickly, and then you're like, and then our attention spans kind of like get.
That's what scares me.
This is what we were talking about yesterday with Tom and Jackie. I
Yeah.
think you were talking about that people's
Yeah.
attention span is
Yeah, with the TikTok
9 seconds or
and-
something
Yeah,
like that,
exactly.
which is
It's a
insane.
thing.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying how it may be. I feel it's maybe what affects because I feel like when I was like starting to tattoo and like later on it started to be bigger and bigger tattoo and people were asking me sleeve when I had like no experience, and it's like people just wanted large stuff, and now I feel more and more people want smaller stuff.
Yeah,
Like
because I think that it's also
Not
too like
asking me.
people are like looking at stuff that it takes you hours and years sometimes doing pieces, and then that you finally post it, and then all of a sudden like people just look at it for 2 seconds and they're like, that's cool, like, and then
gone.
it's gone,
and they've moved on.
and there's
Yeah.
all that work that's been put into it, and it's just sort of like, it's exciting for a minute and then it's gone.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well-
some are remembered, some pieces are of course
Oh,
remembered.
most certainly.
Yeah.
But I think with the remembrance, you want the return client, or you want the next client.
Yeah.
And sometimes with the speed thing, I think it may get passed over if it's not trending or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think that's why we see so much neo-trad. That's why we see so much. I can't say Japanese or anything because that's been such a thing for such a long time.
Yeah.
But again, it's more than ever before the amount of people doing that kind of work.
Yeah.
Right.
Like biomech for a time was
Oh yeah.
a thing
Huge.
unto itself, and it still kind of is, but in a much more
Niche.
It's not
Yeah,
the flavor
very
of the
niche.
time.
Yeah.
But the flavor of the time, I feel, changed so much from like a month to another.
That's what
like
I mean,
it's like
yeah.
our like trend. Like it
Well, it's
goes
like fashion,
so,
kind of.
So almost, yeah. But yeah, there's definitely a different pace to things, and it definitely tinged, I think, the tattoo industry, like the format of social media, because it goes through that a lot. But yeah, like what I was saying for the size of things, we were talking yesterday, is like I feel like social media, because it's so instant and quick, people don't necessarily want as much to commit, and there's a trend going to getting smaller. Maybe I'm crazy. People don't ask me small stuff that much, but I feel just because it's more instant and it's like, it's so good on Instagram, you know, like the photo is about that big on your phone. Yeah. And if you have a back piece on that big, you probably won't really understand what's going on.
Right.
A lot of times you have to see. Banger. I often think about like portfolios of today, like hand portfolios. I've had people give me shit when I talk about like, if you go for a job, you should have a portfolio to hand somebody. And they look at me like, portfolio? The fuck? I got my phone on me.
Right.
And again, part of me disagrees with that because I think it shows a certain amount of commitment that you have a photo album that I can look at and go through, you know? But I also know that a lot of times when you're looking at, say, a back piece, like you were saying, or maybe an arm going into a chest, video tends to work a lot better than just a still photo.
It's very true.
So I see the goods and bads of that way of thinking.
Yeah, right. It's true. It's true. Yeah. The video thing is definitely helping a lot, and for moving parts, you know, that's so much cooler.
Yeah, and it's hard to see that in a photo, you know,
and we do see a lot of like. Perfect example, like when you put something in the crook of a leg or the crook of an arm, and to be able to actually show
the whole thing, how it's
moves,
moving with the body.
Yeah. So you can only get that pretty much in video. You can get stills of it, but it's never going to have the real movement of the other thing.
Yeah.
So
that's a really good point.
Which again, it goes kind of back to that. Like, it's really cool to see that stuff in real life. You know,
right? Exactly.
See how it's aging and that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. The aging bit.
Yeah.
Makes you...
It's humbling.
Oh.
You're like, okay,
I mean, we were just at
really
the convention. I was at the convention in Norfolk, and I had a handful of clients that come up to me with older pieces tattooed on them, one of which I tattooed back in 2001.
Yeah.
And I snapped photos of it. I just posted them online today. I mean, the tattoo's fucking old. It's an aged, tattoo.
Yeah.
And it's done in colors that, I know looking back on, they weren't going to hold up. Like certain browns back then did not hold up very well. Orange, like if you got star bright oranges or yellows, there's no guarantee. You get it differed from batch to batch to batch.
Yeah.
But there's nothing, like you said, more humbling than seeing something 25 years later and be like, holy shit. Like I was excited to see what your hand looked like however many years later.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
I'm going to snap some photos of it before. Because I can find the old photos of that and put them side by side.
Oh, crazy. That's awesome. Yeah, it's I feel like you learn a lot from yourself and about what you have learned through looking at the old stuff that you've done. And before, I kind of was in denial a little bit. Like, I didn't want to see some of the stuff that I did before because I was like, I don't know what it's going to look like. But then, sometimes you have clients that come back and it's like 10, 15 years later and you're like, well, let's work with that. Like, why don't we not just freshen it up, but see what we can do with it, when they're open to it.
Right.
And that's kind of fun,
I think most clients, especially unless they're real, just pig-headed and just have their own mindset. But I think a lot of people, especially now, seem to be more inclined to work with the artists on what they want to do. I think especially, as long as they're not the people looking for the the pocket watch and the fucking rose and the blue eye
or something.
Yeah. So I think when you get someone who's not following all the trends but are still willing to see what other people have.
Yeah.
Well, having said that, what is your thoughts on travel? Because you said you're a homebody. You have a private studio still?
No, I don't.
Now you don't.
No, I work at 2nd Street with date night.
Oh, okay. All right, so you're working amongst other people now.
Yeah.
How important is that?
It's very, very important. Yeah, for sure. I don't know if I would go back to private studio, and if I was one day, it would be because I do like the silence and I do like my little bubble sometimes. But you need to exchange with people. I would go for guest spots all the time for sure. Yeah, it's important, and exchanging with people when traveling, I think it's when I learn the most for sure. Okay. For sure. Big time. But,
and you own a shop. How many people you work with?
So I've had the same people working with me since I opened, basically. I have Birdie and then Glenn Seymour, who's from here, from Virginia, and then I've got Mark Naylor, who's from the UK. I always seem to get these people that are from different places, but the two that have stayed there the longest, who are also married, are Birdie and Glenn. And then now it's been Mark for about 5 years or so.
How long has your shop been open now?
It's I think it's been between 12 and 13 years.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so your tattoo is like
I know.
10
That's
years.
yeah.
It looks
I think
great.
It is. Yeah, I know.
Shit. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's but yeah, it's been good to travel. I certainly love to do that. And having Bertie and Glenn there, they've been there for so long, and they're the most amazing people.
They're so sweet.
They really are. And so they take care of the shop when I'm gone, and I'm so grateful for that.
You know, having I'm sorry.
Just having good people that you work with is really good.
Oh, it's important.
Yeah.
Most certainly. I mean, especially I've been two of the guys I've been with have been with me for 21 years.
Really?
And then another guy's at 19, other guy's at 16. So it's like it's good and bad.
Yeah, that's it.
Like
they
an
see
old
the
couple
good and the bad of
sometimes.
everybody.
It's amazing, but it you know, after being around people for 20 years, you tend to like just walk away sometimes.
Yeah.
So it can be a shit.
Yeah.
But again, you know, I wouldn't trade it, obviously.
Yeah.
But as far as like conventions, we'll touch on conventions because we're all here for a convention. You guys did the Richmond convention. I did the Norfolk convention, which was the first year they did it. It was a bunch of old fucking dudes.
It was awesome.
Yeah, well, in its own right.
Yeah.
Most certainly. It was more about what I want for the most part out of a convention. Maybe a little bit busier would have been nice. You know what I mean? But compared to the convention you guys were at, that was advertised through
see, that's the big difference.
There was a shit ton of people.
That's huge, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that most of the artists that I spoke to at the Richmond show were talking about how awesome Norfolk probably is.
Right.
And they wish that they could be there just to go and see the artists that were there. And that's how I felt too. That's why I made it a point to at least go and take a day on the Sunday and go check out the shop.
A lot of the clients I saw on Friday were all going to Richmond the next day. And then a lot of the people I saw on Saturday did Richmond on Friday.
Yeah.
And they managed to do both. And that's one of the things I when I came to Richmond last year, I didn't work the Richmond show. I did go because all the guys from Norfolk were in Richmond last year. They just changed the whole theme.
Yeah,
and the
you
way
were
they
saying
did
the
it.
lower floor was like.
So I ended up going to Richmond last year, got to see all my friends, and on Saturday, and then Sunday I went to the Anime Convention, which was also in Richmond at the time.
Oh.
And the argument I always made was, you know, these are two completely different shows. It would have been better to be on different weekends because people could have enjoyed both shows without being committed to one.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I felt about Richmond. Again, bullshit politics and ignorance is why it did what it did, unfortunately, you know. What do you consider, do you do a lot of shows overseas? I've seen you in Paris before.
Yeah.
I haven't yet.
Oh, for real?
And
Okay.
even it's my second show I do in the States.
Okay, so I was going to ask, what do you think? So we'll go with you first. What are the differences between a show in Canada versus the two shows you've done here in the States? Do you think there are differences?
There are. We were talking about it.
Yeah. I know more people now in Canada, and because we don't have a lot of shows, and there's, I guess, not as many artists than in the States. So I think we're a little bit more of a tight community.
Smaller show.
Yeah, smaller show, but tighter community. We know each other a little bit more. It's a bit more open and not that it's unfriendly here.
You rarely hear politics in
not that many.
Canadian
A
stuff.
little bit, I'm guessing, but not that many. And everyone is just come over, and it's just
Yeah, that's not like that.
No, we've noticed
like
that.
And in a way, I understand. There's so much people in the States. There's so much people that you cannot be friend with everyone. You cannot talk with everyone.
Yeah, that was
which
a
I
big
think
difference.
is maybe the difference.
Yeah.
And I can feel a little bit of that here. That said, I met a bunch of awesome people.
Yeah.
In
Having
those
said
shows
that,
so
you've
far.
still met
Yeah.
a lot of people
Yeah.
being around.
But I could see it's a bit different for that, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Christina? You've been around a bunch, so.
Yeah, I definitely noticed a difference. I think it's about the same. I feel like in Canada, there's a lot more open and welcoming, and like a community. You know? Whereas I think in the States, it's it's like that, but it's a little bit more hard to crack. You know,
Right.
it either feels very intimidating or a little scary, or then it also feels a little bit like like there are people that genuinely are very friendly, but
Yeah, there's always a few there.
yeah. So kind of, I don't know. It's been okay.
Yeah, I've been enjoying it. I'm excited to see overseas. I don't really know the Europe side.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try that next year, hopefully.
I know. I
So-
feel like it's like the clients that are drastically different from place to place.
Europe Europe, like, the first show I ever did overseas was in Switzerland.
Oh,
And then that was great. And then, but that was also smallish, and it was mainly people from, like, mainly from the EU. So you had a lot of people, very, like, one or two people from the UK, but mainly people from Italy, France, Spain, mainly that. But when we did something like Paris, or when the first time I did the first London convention, that was fucking insane, because that's people from everywhere. And the convention itself is very large.
Yeah.
And this is also at a time where people come from all over the globe to go to a convention and work it. So it was, not to work it, but to go and visit. So you all have, not only have artists from all over the globe, but now you have all these clients coming from all over.
Yeah.
And they're all converging on the
EU
city.
is so small, so if you have someone that comes from, like, United
Exactly.
States,
It's easy to get to.
you're like, oh, well, it's so much closer, I can get a
Exactly.
€50 flight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that really blew me away. And again, back in the States, and I'm sure it was the same in Canada earlier in your career, where if there was a convention, there may have only been, well, you guys are still young, but there may have been only 20 conventions in a year, So people did make an effort to go to almost all the conventions. Here in the States, back in my day, there were like 2 or 3.
Right.
And they were a thing that everybody came out for, because everybody wanted to go to that show.
We've heard lore of like these old, shows, and it's just like the coolest thing to be able to hear about them through people that have been to them. It's just like these shows sounded epic back in the day.
Well, they were, because it was so it was just not the norm.
Yeah.
But now everything is kind of like,
Yeah, and because there's so many that it's almost tiring. You almost are like, ugh, like I don't want to go.
You've seen them all, because it's not the case, but like you've seen 50 of them, you've seen a fair bit. Like you don't like, you know what I mean? Like
the same.
No, I agree
silly,
wholeheartedly.
like,
Exactly. Because every single show you and the cliques are kind of the same now. It's like, oh, that's all the new school guys. That's all the neo-trad guys. That's what, and everybody tends to go off on their own, especially in Europe. With a show like London, because nobody's staying in the same hotel. Everybody's someplace else, and you get groups of people that are all going out to dinner on their own and stuff. And that was kind of what Norfolk was trying to recapture, and what Richmond always had, because it was such a small convention, and it was in a hotel. It was never both levels. It used to just mainly be one level, and the top level would be just for like contests and shit like that. But again, more tattooers, more people want to get in, more people want to make more money, whatever. So it kind of loses a bit of its soul in a sense, But by the same token, they're still trying to, keep the spark alive, So I understand things have to change, but sometimes it has to change and there's no coming back, which is what I think I'm starting to realize. All the things I reminisce are not necessarily things that are ever going to happen again. And it's probably not a bad thing.
You don't think so, eh?
I don't know. I mean, what show did you absolutely adore and have gone back to, and it's just simply not the same, or anything for that matter? You know what I mean?
True. Yeah.
Sometimes there's simply no going back.
Yeah.
It just change. It takes a different shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it could be very disappointing in my opinion.
Yeah.
To see change happen like that so dramatically, and it's just like,
Yeah.
It's when things lost their soul a bit that I found it sad. Because it feels like a lot of stuff kind of lost its flavor, like just in the world in general. Like, cause everything gets so commercialized, I guess. Like, I don't know if we're getting off like track here with conventions or
keep
with
talking
tattoo. With tattoo in general, I feel it's like it's a thing that it kind of lost.
I know.
And it's kind of, I don't know.
I know. I feel like it's like it kind of reminds me of like bands, they had their heyday. There was like like a really epic album or something like that, and then after that they go commercial and then it's not as good.
Yeah,
but
they have to pay the bills and something like that.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like it's a little bit like that,
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be fun, I think. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I think, like I said, it's like anything. Things are going to change. I understand that.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a bummer to see.
I know.
So, let's do some tactical talk. You were saying you do use coils still?
I do for lining.
Just for lining, strictly for lining?
Yeah, like the vibration and the weight is a bit too rough on my hands to use them all day long every day. So I started to use a pen finally 2 years ago. And now I have a cordless one for the coloring. Yeah, it's just easier on my hand.
You use which ones do you use again?
I use a Good Guy pen that I actually really like. I'm sponsored, so. But
Yeah,
Sponsored, so I have to say that.
No,
It's awesome,
No,
though.
I actually really
It's
like
really
it.
good.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like it, and they have weighted grip now, so it's
I did see
Yeah.
you using a stainless steel grip inside.
it's awesome.
Yeah, it's
So
fantastic.
it's funny. The first time I had seen that, a friend of mine had made one for one of his machines.
Oh, nice.
And then I know Bishop. They were one of the first people that had a brass.
Oh yeah, for like the
grip.
one.
Right.
Yeah, for
They do
the
the
one.
one. Yeah.
Because that machine is really, really small. Even with the
Right.
battery, it's pretty small.
Yeah.
But you also originally started using coils across the board.
Oh yeah, there was just nothing.
Nothing
That was
else.
it, yeah.
Yeah, I remember like buying even my first like machine on internet, like rotary one, and like be all intimidated and trying to line with that, and I struggle lining with rotaries or pens. I did this weekend and it actually went pretty smoothly, but
But you said it slowed you way down.
it does slow
Yeah.
me down. So like when I line a sleeve or like a chest or a back, like the idea, well, not necessarily chest. I didn't want this. It went good, but yeah, like it definitely is better with coil, and I prefer my line quality. I don't have a steady hand, which sounds weird to say, but like if I slow down,
it helps with it.
kind of shake a little
I
bit
think
more. So if I do this,
If you're moving
Yeah.
faster, it's
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah. So
That definitely makes perfect sense.
What,
yeah.
what coil do you use again?
yeah, I have like a Aaron King that I like, but I'm mainly just
Jesse
Young.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from Canada.
Yeah.
I love his machines. They're awesome. They're
Nice.
great. Yeah.
And you
not
started with
sponsored.
coils.
Yeah, and I still use them, but I kind of go back and forth. Like I think what happened is that when I started using the pen, when I was introduced to that, I was like, oh, this is great. Everybody's using it for all around for everything. So I'm going to try that
Right.
and try
So
to get used to
simple,
it.
right?
Yeah, and I mean it's great for travel.
Yeah.
But then now that I've kind of started to get used to it, I was like, well, what do I like about this? And what do I like about the coil? What do I like about the rotary? And so I think now that my go-tos when I'm at home and comfortable and I'm not traveling
Right.
is I've got the Numa. That would be the pen that I'm using.
Yeah.
And then I've got a couple Dan Cubans. And then I've got Lucas Ford. And Lucas Ford is a Canadian
Oh
builder.
yeah, Lucas Ford. He started out as a machine builder.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Good Guy Supplies.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they designed their own pen like what you're using now.
Yeah.
But I think that and he's still pretty much. I mean, when I see him tattooing, he's either using 9 times out of 10 he's either using his rotary that uses the
He's
needles
tweaking
on the bar.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or he's using coils for
Foil.
the most part. You know.
And they're so good. So it just I've out of all the ones that I've had in the past, I've found that his was like the one that I didn't have to like alter and tweak
Yeah.
And futz around with.
Yeah, some just have too much of a shake and are like, cool, it's out of tune all the time.
Yeah. But I think like Anne and I are similar in that way where like I do lines with the coil, and then sometimes I'll go back with like the Cuban, and then shade basically with the pen. Yeah.
I think the idea of using the pen for for shading and color.
Yeah.
The joy of it is the fact that if you're you find yourself in a bind, you got one little tiny spot that you can
You
Cartridges.
can switch over.
You
Yeah.
can just switch a cartridge. So it is really, really hard to switch from that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. But as far as lining with them, I absolutely hate it. If
Oh,
I'm
me
doing
too.
something small and simple, I always bring my cartridge liners to a show.
Yeah.
Because there's certain times that you're just going to do a little banger, and it's instead of setting up 3 machines,
You might as well just do
grab
it.
the machine.
Yeah.
This machine, because you can do it. It just maybe you work a little bit slower.
Well, that's it.
And again, I prefer needles on the bar for lining.
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
cartridge
Yeah.
volumes.
It's got this
Yeah.
nice, like, organicness to it, if I can say that.
And I feel like it's like you said earlier. It's like you can just pull it, and it's way more steady, and you know, if you're doing everything right.
But cartridges is the best invention.
It's a convenience.
Convenient.
It's incredibly difficult to walk away from. It's such an easy thing to futz around with. You know, to just grab something and go.
I know.
Yeah. So.
But
especially when you're making all these decisions with like art and stuff. You're like, oh, what color am I going to use and stuff like that.
I don't want to. We're not going to end this on this. We're not going to end this because it could be a bit of a bummer, and I don't want it to be.
Okay.
But we were talking about like kind of our future, like whether it be financial or health or any number of things. You had a fucking horrible accident.
I know.
And again, if you don't want to talk too much about it, I totally understand.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, cool. You had a horrible accident. I only know what I read online because I never reached out to you directly. I never thought to, you know, not that I didn't think to, but it's like you've got enough on your plate. Yeah. You want to? What happened?
I know. Well, I was cooking. I was getting ready to go on a camping trip, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna make some stuff, freeze it, and then bring it to camping. So in the recipe that I was making, it said, you know, boil, and I had this little crappy, like, it's all steel pan or pot, and I put it on the oven and put the oil in. I think I put about that much oil, and let it boil, like it said. And I'd never really deep fried or anything like that before, and so I was like, oh, it's boiling, it's ready, you know. And then I took a piece of food, I dropped it in, and then all of a sudden it just went poof, and it was like this little ball of fire, and I was like, oh no. And so then I like grabbed the handle, which was all steel, and and I didn't need, my adrenaline must have been going because I didn't feel that.
You tattooed like head to toe for, you know, like,
well, that's
we're
the
good
thing.
at like not feeling pain.
I know,
like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a curse at the same time.
Yeah,
like,
I know. And so like I grabbed that, and then I was like, oh, in my mind I thought, I'm gonna go to the patio and dump it out. And then I was like, as I walked over, there was little things of fire, and it's on fire. And I'm like, no, maybe that's a bad idea. So then I was just like panicking, and I went into the bathroom while it was still on fire. And I was like, I think I'll just put it into the tub and then turn the shower on. God. So then I did. I put it down and then turned the shower on, and then it went like, it literally blew up. And I was like in the tub going like that, right? And so I kind of turned this way, and I guess I, you know, dropped it, but I think my hand was on fire. But as I, you know, flew back, basically, I think that it like went out, but I was, and then I was like, oh no, like I'm on fire, I'm panicking, it was crazy. And then because it was not just your hand, it was your arm, the side of your face. My face,
and
my chest.
Fire and oil.
And oil, yeah.
So it stays on you, right?
And so so then there was this giant fireball. Like I remember the whole tub like being fire, like on the ceiling and everything. And I was like, I gotta get out of here. So I ran out, and then like I thought my place was on fire. I looked back, there was all this black smoke, and I ran to the hallway, like I banged on people's doors, and then somebody let me in. I was home alone.
Thanks God.
I know, and then they let me in. They're like, oh my God, and I just hurled myself in there and like went underneath the water, like of their tap, and like just
to run water on it.
Yeah,
and
I looked down
in your apartment because your fucking shower was on fire.
Yeah, I know, and I thought the rest of the house was on fire, and so I put my arm under the thing, and I remember like looking at it, and there was all this skin that was just hanging off, and it was just all this red underneath, and I was like, oh no, I'm deformed, you know, like I was like, what the. And so I was freaking out.
You lose your mind.
Yeah, and it was immediately too. It wasn't even adrenaline. The pain of being burnt is the most painful thing, I think. Well, they do say that it's the most painful thing.
They say it's the most painful thing, or it's painless.
Yeah, until it's painless.
Because you burn everything so deep.
Yeah.
If you burn your nerves.
I guess the fact that you can feel pain, I'm assuming, and I don't know that for certain, but I'm assuming that that's not as bad as not feeling pain.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And I think that that's what happened with my hand, because the hand wasn't as bad, it was everything else. And then later they determined that there was third degree, so it did go to the muscle. And so I got a little bit here, so that must have burnt maybe a bit of the bone. And then this muscle, and the hand has been, like, I mean, it certainly looks different than it did, but it's getting back to tattooing again has been really hard because I haven't been able to use like a coil, certainly, but I've been using the pen, and it's a newer pen, so it's a bit heavier.
Yeah.
But they want me to massage the scars so that they can.
You're losing a lot of
back,
flexibility.
It's more like they were worried that my hand was gonna just stay in one place, and I was talking to Grime about this, and he was like, you gotta see like a specialist, like you need to get movement back in that hand because you're gonna.
It shrink, right? Like it starts.
Yeah.
The scar tissue make your skin
It'll
shrink,
and then it'll stay
right?
that way.
Yeah.
So I have been, and I've been working on it and trying different methods, and I've got to put the gloves over it. So it usually, like every day, it kind of, the
I would
skin's so
imagine
delicate.
it's almost like having an open sore, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Because the skin is so, like you said,
It's
so
so delicate. Like, and I was getting all these blood blisters, like even up to like a week ago, I'm still getting them.
And you can't be in the sun.
I can't be in the
You
sun
have to
now.
avoid like being in the sun for 2 months now.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And then I probably, like they were saying, I can't get tattooed on any of this for
I would
at
imagine
least
a couple of years.
2 years at least, yeah. And so, but like I mean, I guess I'm lucky because my face was burnt, my nose was, I thought I was going to lose my nose, I thought I was going to lose my thumb, and my chest.
Whole chest, yeah.
Yeah, and I've got like.
And your whole front is Steve Moore,
yeah, and this whole thing was burnt, and it basically looks like I've had laser now on this area, and I can't do anything about it for a while, which is, like that sucks, but
I remember seeing photos of that piece, and yeah, it's funny, I didn't know it was on you.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was on you for about probably a year.
Really?
Before I realized it was you. I was like, oh my God, she fucking went for it. Holy shit.
I know.
And who did, and your back is by?
Steve as well.
By Steve as well. Okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. Okay.
So Steve he started my back, and again, like huge influence on me. And, but he started my back, and it took us 24 hours to do the back, over a year. And then I came back, I think a year later, and I know, and then I talked about wanting to get a Cyclops on my front, and then so he designed that, and we kind of work with the body. I think it was probably a challenge, I would assume, to work with the body when there's breasts right in the middle of it, and not make it look funny, like you're not making fun of the body.
You're not accentuating areas that like you're trying to work with it without actually bringing attention to them, I guess.
Right, yeah. And so working like that was really interesting, and I had that influenced me quite a bit as well,
But in the same time, that piece is not super flattering for a young lady, because it's like the Cyclops belly is kind of a little funnel, and
on
it's
my
like
belly.
yours.
Yeah, I know.
I thought it was pretty ballsy to do that. I love that piece. It's one of my favorite. It's so cool.
I thought so too. Like, I think even Steve was like, "Are you sure?"
Are you sure? Yeah.
And I was like, "No, I want that. Like, I want something that's like kind of gnarly looking, like, and kind of maybe unflattering. I think it's cool,
Because even your back. Right?
Yeah. Well,
I
think that's the thing with someone like Steve, is it's so not the norm.
Yeah.
And he approaches it more painterly than he does a tattooer in a sense, because of the large fields of color and these huge swaths of like gray that go into, that have color behind them, and then like it's really beautiful.
I know.
And but having said that, it's not I don't want to say it lacks the flow. It's a different style from something like a Japanese or something that works with body parts, where it has this flow. Where his stuff tends to be a little bit, I don't want to say linear. I'm not really sure the word I'd be looking for, but it's almost it's almost like his images are forcing the body to work with it, as opposed to the body working with you.
But he uses the body for tricks, like it's gonna move with it.
Most certainly,
but he doesn't necessarily is flattering the curve of the body or
It's funny though, because I think that with my back, because Amory has her leg, you have your leg done from him too.
Yeah.
And I think with my back, what I really like about it, I mean, I wish I could see it in real life, but he used the legs to kind of that was a big part of me learning from him, was that he used my body in that piece to really complement it, because the legs of the spider lady kind of come down onto the hips, and when I move, they move.
The legs move. That's pretty wild.
It's pretty cool. Like that was a big inspiration for me.
I have that on my leg too. Like the hand that is holding like lantern is like following this. So
so it
moves with the body.
Yeah, and like the foot of the lady is going on my foot. So it's
it's these little things. They're subtle, but
see, I remember back in the day, like when you first started seeing like, and Philip was probably the one that comes to mind the fastest, but I'd seen it in Japanese books and whatnot, where they would do a full, some kind of mask or some kind of, like a fudo or a hanya or any number of things, and it would be a full back.
Yeah.
And with someone like Philip, it was usually like a Tibetan mask, like a giant Tibetan skull or something.
And that's the whole thing.
And then what they do is they would pose in different angles, and it would always make the mask look like it changes its own shape, expression, whatever. And it was back in the day, it was always a photograph that you got to see. You never really saw a video. And then it's now you get to see people posing and actually flexing with this huge thing on the back. So that's what we were saying earlier about having video being so convenient to be able to really show what these things are capable of doing. So
that is really cool. Yeah, because and wasn't there like one year there was like that thing where Kurt Wiscombe from Winnipeg. And didn't he do, there was like a back piece skull show or something where they did, remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, and I remember seeing some videos of that, and I was like, wow, that's so cool, like you can see them moving and you can see all that kind of stuff. But, naively you think back, or I think back, and I'm like, did they intend to do that? That's really cool.
You kind of want to think, because they'd seen things like that done so many times, that you can't help that it puts it in the back of their head to actively do that.
Right,
you know what I mean? As opposed to maybe happening by accident or whatever.
But it's like even like fine art, right? Like you wonder, did they mean that?
Exactly.
Or
was that just a mistake, like a convenient mistake?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I feel like maybe you have to learn like the bad way and do like the mistake one, like when you put a sword the first time in the folding arm and you're like,
oh shit.
Oh, maybe I could use that next time for doing something cool out of it.
Well, I think that's like you said before about sometimes you have to make mistakes. Like you say, you got to break a couple of eggs to make an omelet.
Exactly.
So it makes sense that the more you do something, even if it's not always done correctly, there's a good chance you're gonna fucking learn something from them.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
for sure.
Is there anything else you guys want to touch on? I don't want to keep us here all night. We could just. Is there anything else is there anybody you want to give a shout out to as far as like inspirations and anything else? You guys are from Canada. There is a tremendous amount of amazing Canadian artists. You know what I mean? Like, one of my favorite is James Tex. I mean, he's a phenomenal artist.
He did your hand.
Yeah, he did my hand here. Like there's just some tremendous talent up there. I
know.
And again, it's all over the place. I mean,
and him and Anthony were just at the Richmond show as well.
Oh, they were here.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
So they're
That's
cool.
That's true. This was the Ink Master convention.
Yes.
That was one of the things that everyone just kind of like, oh Jesus, they pulled out they pulled a Hollywood out for this one. So, dude, when I heard he was on it, I was like, there's no fucking way. Then they were both on it. I'm like,
I know.
Holy shit. Well, we know who won, so that's there's just no fucking way. And I'm pretty certain that's not a spoiler. Because if he didn't win, fuck off. There's no fucking way he does not win. But whatever, I don't know that for a fact.
Well, don't tell Anthony that. Yeah, I mean, like I'm pretty sure you're gonna name off like some of the same artists I'm gonna name off to like in Canada,
so
especially.
Many,
I mean, like I think a lot of the.
Let's say top 5. If you could pick a top 5.
Canadian. Let's stick with Canadian.
Yeah. You start. You go.
No, you go.
Jesus.
Well, there's always like
the
Steve and James for sure. I mean, Dave,
Rob Noseworthy, Dave Knight.
I mean, I feel I need to say, I really like my friend Guy-Antoine from Montreal, Gigantornio. I feel he's underknown, and I really like his stuff.
Okay.
But
There's a few from Montreal, but I can't.
I should probably see my old boss, Safwan.
Safwan.
Oh, Safwan. Yeah, exactly.
Like he helped me a lot.
I
and
met
got me
him
back into coils.
You met him?
Yeah. Well, when I first met him it wasn't the first London convention. It was a couple of London conventions in, and he was hanging out with G and oh God, there was like 4 of them that were all hanging out in the booth together. They were all doing. He was kind of traditional. Everybody else was doing kind of like new schoolish kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they came up to me and they were just like, "Oh my God, Joe Capobianco," and I'm like, I think I was selling my books at that time. Huh?
Yeah, I told you that everybody loves you.
Oh, gee, yeah, that was a long time. We're talking like almost 20 years ago. But yeah, he's somebody like I hadn't seen him for a really, really, really long time, and I think I ran into him at the last Paris convention. I want to say it was the last time I'd seen something like that.
Yeah, he was at the Paris show.
And it was and I just run into him, and it probably been, it had to be at least, probably 8 years that I'd seen him before then.
Really?
You know what I mean? Yeah, because there was a time where I kind of did stop doing some conventions. Like I stopped doing London convention probably 8 years in, I think, and then I hadn't done it for a couple of years, and then I went back one more time, and I ended up doing the last London convention. I did the last London convention, the last Paris convention before COVID, and then that's the last time. I did the big London show that just happened last year. I did that one.
Yeah.
And it was different. It was cool, but it wasn't the Mickey Bielowitz of shows. But it was still a really nice show. It was like just a little. It's not as. It's just as international, obviously, but it lacks the. I don't know, lacks a bit of the flair that Mickey shows had. But by the same token, it was good in its own right. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Back in the day, did you ever meet like Dutchman, John? Or?
It's funny. No, never met him. And the worst part is, I did Electric Ink in Brazil. Always has this. They do this thing called Best Ink, where he basically makes people compete for sponsorship in Brazil, because he can't see everybody, obviously, and you can't give it away to everybody. And a lot of people were pissed off that they were being kind of passed up for sponsorship. So he put on a convention. He said, "Okay, you guys compete now, and here's New School, here's Black Work, here's he puts all these things in, and then he makes them judge themselves." So I did it in 2018.
Oh wow! Really?
And it was good because it kind of puts them all on the spot. Because now you can't just put in a vote for yourself. You got to really kind of look at what everybody else has done. So I thought it was really clever.
Yeah.
And then I went that year, and they called them dinosaurs. They don't call them old school guys. They call us dinosaurs.
That's flattering.
No,
so
they don't.
They made this big poster up, and he named all the old school Brazilian tattooers, and I was an honorary dinosaur on the list, which was actually very nice. So I met a couple of really nice guys.
That must have felt you good.
Oh, it was super nice.
Like what kind of dinosaur?
But the following year, I was going to go, and last minute I backed out, and he was there, and I was like, how the fuck did you get him here?
Yeah.
But I'm assuming it may be some kind of connection with.
Well, because I think he goes back and forth to the Philippines as well. With his wife.
Maybe that makes sense. Yeah. But I remember seeing pictures, and he's cruising around the fucking show. He's hanging out at the factory. I'm like, God damn it, how did I miss it?
I know, he's so cool too. And what about did you ever meet Thomas Lockhart?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
He's still in Vancouver, eh?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure. All right.
Yeah. He was doing like a bunch of interviews and stuff with people all around the world too. So I was kind of like, and then he stopped doing it. So I just was like, does anyone know who he is?
It's you know what it is. I mean, this stuff is all a lot of work. And again, in order to keep the names of certain people out there, and also to bring in light for other people that are younger and nobody really knows just yet. I mean, I think. I mean, again, I shit on the younger generation tattooer a lot. And
that's your thing.
Yeah, well, it kind of is. And I don't want to call it a thing. I don't call it a thing.
That's
it's just a natural, inclination. But a lot of it's also just because of, you can't help but think what you guys miss as being a younger generation compared to what we had when we were younger. Yeah. God, everything I said makes me sound like an old fucking man.
I know, you really aged.
Honorary dinosaurs.
Why are you doing that?
I can't help myself because, like I said, going to certain shows, like you remember what the show used to be, and now you see what it is. And while it, you could probably look at it and be like, that was a fucking amazing show. I look at it, I'm like, nah, fuck that show. I don't want to do that show.
Yeah.
Because it's just not what I remember it to be. And that's the thing, is getting over that and being like, all right, it's not the old show, it's a new show. But I can also just simply say, yeah, I'm not going to do that show again.
Well, yeah,
which
exactly.
is kind of what I did. So.
It seems like it's fair. The generation just I guess it would be before us, older generation. So like say in their probably 40s, 50s, is they're all kind of on that boat. A lot of them, you know, like they don't really care to go to the conventions. They think it's stupid or whatever.
I wish, I've said this a million times, I wish someone would just pump the fucking brakes.
Yeah.
With the amount, in my opinion, with the business the way it is now, and it's the worst it's ever been, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And again, you may think differently, but I feel it's the worst it's ever been, and we're not slowing down.
Yeah.
There are more suppliers, there are more tattooers, there are more tattoo conventions, there are more everything.
Yeah.
And it's gotten to the point now where it's like, okay, where does this end? And
Yeah.
if I had to say, there's no good place for it to fucking end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, shit, we survived the pandemic. Fantastic. We came out, I won't say stronger, we came out more,
Yeah.
but I don't consider that a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't want to end this on a fucking bad note, so say something nice.
No,
I said, I didn't want to end this on a downer note.
Good note.
yeah, you asked me. I'm not like the darkest
Well, we can't ask
person always
Joe,
going, okay,
clearly.
let's
I
talk
was going to say,
about
I'm not the one who's going to save this podcast.
let's talk about the cost of life, like the cost of living.
Oh,
geez.
yeah, yeah.
Shit. Yeah.
No, I mean, there's just like, there's so many tattoo artists but there's a lot of really good ones. And I think that the really good ones that continue to work really hard are going to be the ones that shine through, you know?
And even like, I feel the newcomers, like now it's like more accessible, like the tools and everything is a bit more accessible, which seems to be bad stuff, but people get to the point good to like really fast. Like in 5 years, you got amazing people, which is scary for people that spend so much time, but in the same time, you see stuff that you've never seen before. It's so inspiring.
Yeah.
Like you can try a bit, people try sometimes a bit too much, like new stuff, but like, it's just like the level of like artistry is just, there's really, really bad one too, which is like the other side of it, which is the dark spot we're not gonna finish with. Yeah. Like there's amazingly inspiring people, and there's access for people to like be known, having clients through social media, which usually social media is what I love shitting on, and a lot of us. Yeah. But there's also a good side that like you can get good clients and actually make a career and be an inspiring artist, like instead of just like you have to be in a busy place. You need to know the right people. Like now it's like a bit more accessible to people that like we're a bit more like on the artistic side and more than tattooing, and they bring something new to it, I think. And it can be really inspiring, I think.
Yeah.
Is it a good note?
No, that's a good note to end
Is
on.
it?
Yeah.
It makes sense.
That anybody new coming into this business can be very inspiring.
Yeah.
And having said that,
You're
there's
like-
a lot that aren't. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you had to say that.
But I want to thank you guys. I really do want to thank you guys for sitting with me.
Yeah.
I know you were both nervous about doing it, and
Yes.
I'm really happy we got to sit down. I'm happy I got to see you again.
Yeah.
I wish you guys the best with all your travels. Safe
Thank you.
travels. Okay.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody again. Like and subscribe, and spread the word. Thank you very much.